Okay, so this is week one of the John Thomas's modern De La Riva game. Going to look at concepts. So we're going to look at what makes actually a strong De La Riva hook. Just actually turn it all away. Everyone's got a bad knee, so we're working on my bad side. So there's really three types of De La Riva hooks. One would be shallow at the thigh, here. Okay. The second one, and this would be the worst one because I don't have as much control of Tyrone's base and his balance with this. The one we're going to be looking for is still shallow, but now it's further up at his hip. Okay. You notice even from there I can really mess with Tyrone's balance and base. I can off balance him in four directions just from that control. So if I was playing the game from here and I was using my support leg, I can pull Tyrone towards me, which is one off balance. I can push him away, I can take him to my right, or I can take him to my left, and I'm constantly going to be off balancing. My De La Riva hook will be strong if it's in his hip. The third De La Riva hook we're going to be looking at throughout the system will be a deep one at the far hip here. Again, entrances into Del X and all that stuff, but mainly the one we're going to be looking at will be this one on the hip. So what dictates how I get a strong De La Riva hook? So in other words, why would we have the worst one here? Well, sometimes you might get this at the start and then you're going to be looking to get it more up to the hip. So you might start off shallow here, low down at the inside of his thigh, but then I'll be looking to get it further up into his hip, whereby I have more control of Tyrone's lead leg and I can off balance him a wee bit more. So the first thing would be my hip positioning. I was always taught that I should actually be sitting on his foot. You notice my right hip is right on top of Tyrone's left instep, but from there sometimes it's quite difficult to actually get up to the hip in that position there, because basically my hip's too close. So obviously it depends on the length of your limbs as well, everyone's different. So for me to get the better De La Riva hook for the size of my legs, I'd want to be thinking about moving my hips back. So in other words, I'm creating distance between my butt and Tyrone's lead foot. This allows me to get that De La Riva hook in right at his hip. So the distance I am, my hip from his foot, dictates whether your De La Riva hook is strong. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I don't put a De La Riva hook in with my back flat on the mat. So sometimes it's quite difficult. Sometimes people say they can't play the De La Riva game because they don't have the flexibility to get the De La Riva hook in, and they're actually having to bring their knee way out to thread that through. So the second thing we want to be thinking about is I'm not flat on my back when I put the De La Riva hook in. I'm actually on my hip. So if I'm putting in a right De La Riva hook, I'm going to be on my right hip. This allows me to bring and weave my foot in, and I can get right up at that hip. And then from there, obviously I'm coming flat on my back, and we can start making our grips and stuff. So that's the second thing, is hip angle. We never enter the De La Riva guard flat, we actually come onto our hip and thread it through to that deep position. So that's two things I'm doing. Let's talk about two things Tyrone will be doing. If you notice the way Tyrone's in headquarters and he's driving into me and he's got a bend in that leg, that's perfect. Now, once I get my hip distance right and I'm starting to turn onto my hip, now I can get that De La Riva hook in right into his hip, which is a good thing. But notice the way if Tyrone now straightens back his leg. Okay, with a straight leg it's very hard for me to get a De La Riva hook in because I don't have the profile. So obviously from there I'd have to start using my support leg to push Tyrone back, and then this would allow me to put that hook in. Okay. Another thing we could be thinking about, because De La Riva out of all the open guards is probably the most complicated because of the grip situation. If you think about a more simpler guard, which would be double sleeve or collar and sleeve, let's look at collar and sleeve. If I was playing collar and sleeve, from my position, my hand is in the collar and my hand that has the sleeve never really changes when you're playing collar and sleeve, which is why it's called collar and sleeve. Okay, and from there obviously I'll be looking for an open elbow. Probably one of the go-to moves from collar and sleeve would be the hip escape out to get that open elbow on Tyrone's left elbow, and then I'd be kicking through and looking for the omoplata. Notice the way, if I was trying to put in a De La Riva hook and Tyrone straightens his left leg, that's just giving me now the omoplata. He'll want to counter that by bringing his elbow back and bending, getting a bend in that lead leg. So if I was playing collar and sleeve and he's defending the omoplata, notice the way now he has bent his front leg. So I just walk my hip back so I have good hip distance, turn on my right side, and by sheer luck, there's the De La Riva hook in where I want it. Okay, so in other words, if he straightens that leg, I can make him bend it by either pushing with the support leg or switching to collar and sleeve, start attacking the omoplata, and then when he kind of pulls back his elbow and makes that connection, he'll put a bend in his leg, and now you can start playing De La Riva. The other thing, let me just turn this way, no sugar here, would be the direction of his toes. So if you notice if Tyrone's in headquarters, his toes are facing towards me, okay? But if I try to put the De La Riva hook in, and then Tyrone turns his knee out, notice the way his toes are turning more outward. So anytime anyone turns their toes outward, again, it takes away the profile of the De La Riva hook. But again, we're going to be addressing this later in the mesocycle, how I can make him turn his toes back in again. So I'll be keeping my grips, I'll be playing the De La Riva. Anytime he starts to turn that toes out and his knees pointing out, there's a lot of pressure on my De La Riva hook there. So again, from that position, when you're playing the De La Riva hook, it's not just about with a De La Riva hook in like this here, okay? I can take the De La Riva hook out and actually use knee pressure to turn his knee back in again. So even though I haven't got the hook in, you turn your knee out, bro, perfect. I can keep that grip, take the hook out, and then use, if Tyrone's driving into me with his knee, I can counter pressure back with my knee and basically turn my knee. See when I turn my knee, his toes turn to face me, and now from there I've got that De La Riva hook again right back in his hip. So sometimes when he turns his toes out, I have to make sort of little adjustments to get his toes in the right position, to get a bend in the leg. That's the two things I'm looking when I'm trying to get the De La Riva hook on Tyrone. And I'm also looking at my hip distance from his foot. I'm also looking at the angle that I put the De La Riva hook in. So those four things are things we want to be thinking about to have a strong De La Riva hook when you're playing the De La Riva Guard.